Hey everybody, Joshua Laycock here. We've made it to day 13, which is pretty cool. It's becoming a little less of a chore, having some fun with it. A few days ago, I did an introductory post starting to talk about my vision and the way that I craft a vision and how important that is to me. And it's been pretty cool. I've had some interesting feedback, people asking questions saying, hey, why'd you stop? But I haven't. I got 100 days, so I'm gonna chip away at it, but also I'm trying to condense something that's taken me the better part of, I don't know, 5 or 6 years into a few short videos. So I'll continue to kind of walk you through my process and explore how I did it. Um, and I was thinking, like, what's the next steps? We talked about the reason why visions are important, and how the first step was someone asking me, what kind of a person do you really want to be? What kind of a man do you want to be? And the process of writing your eulogy and looking back on a life well lived and describing what that looks like. And that's a powerful tool, and I hope that those of you who are following this have done that or have made a note to do that. And I remember when I did it feeling stuck because I was nowhere near the kind of person that I wanted to become. And that's a bit scary, right? It's a bit overwhelming when you see that gap between where you are and where you need to go. It's like staring down this massive journey, not entirely sure how you're going to get there. And so, it can be overwhelming. And I remember this was right around the same time that I was dealing with sort of massive mental swirling. My brain was just spiraling out of control. So something like I talked about in the first couple of videos when I started Lifestyle Evolution. And one of the tools that I had, I guess, always played around with but never really been very intentional about was meditation. And meditation has been a really important part of my journey. I don't do it every day, but I try to. And I was thinking about what's the next step. If someone's following along, if they're playing at home and they want to start working on their vision, what is the next thing beyond creating your eulogy and thinking about the kind of person that you want to become? What's the best tool? And I really think that the best thing that you can do as the next step is get comfortable with meditation. And it serves a few different purposes, I think. So what I did is I grabbed an app. I used the Calm app. There's a few of them, Headspace and Muse and a couple others, I think. But I like Calm. It's worked for me, and I've been subscribing to it for quite a while. Getting comfortable with meditating, sitting quietly without input or stimulus, and sometimes working on calming the mind, working on getting rid of the chatter, the constant worry and narratives and obsessing about the day, is a really good way to start the process of allowing you to focus on what matters. I don't meditate personally with the goal of sitting in a Zen-like state and not thinking. I just, some days I want that, but for the most part, that's not what I'm going after. Or at least it's not my end game. I like to create silence in my mind so that I can then focus on the things that I want to focus on. So what I did, and I like this, I think Tom Bilyeu calls it Finca Tating, which I thought was kind of cool, is I started to create the world in my mind that I wanted to live in. I started to create what has become my vision. And it started off with tangible things. It was describing or sitting and thinking about my home, thinking about my family, thinking about my car, thinking about the property that we lived on, thinking about what my ideal life is like, what my ideal day, not laying on the beach and doing nothing. I don't mean, that perfect day. I just mean if you could live life on your own terms, within the confines of, look, you're going to have to work, you're going to have to earn an income. But whatever that looked like, what is your ideal day? And I started living in that day. And the process started off very sensory in terms of what would I see? What am I seeing around me? And in time, and I'm talking this process is stretched out over months sometimes. Sometimes I would just live in that world. I would have conversations with people in the world, ideal conversations with my spouse and my kids and all those sorts of things. It would start with, what do you see and what do you hear? It would start to get more rich. I'd focus on the colors and the sounds around me and just be immersed in it. Then I started to introduce almost like a tactile sensation. What do things feel like? Are they cold? Are they warm? Are they soft? Are they hard? Are they rough? I talked about one of the first things for me is in my ideal day, when I'm there, I feel myself stepping out of bed and stepping on the ground, and I can feel the texture of the ground. And that's sort of like a trigger for me to let me know that I'm in my vision world, in the place that I want to habitate. And that evolves into smells, tastes, aromas, the coffee. And the point of the process is that it becomes less visual. It's slowly becoming less tactile and more about the sensations that surround me. And as I talked to you earlier, the evolution of this vision quest, I guess, is that you focus on, or that you get to a point where you are deeply in tune with what you feel, what this process, how it's making you feel. The sense of contentment and joy and those things, those are the emotional responses to this world that will create the gravity that pulls you forward. And this took a long time, but I remember the first time I ever felt it in my world. I've always wanted a home with a big front porch that overlooked either water or just space. Nothing fancy, just room. And the first time that I really felt an emotional connection with my vision was when I was sitting on my front porch. And I remember I was meditating within a meditation, which is probably like Inception or something. Sitting on the front porch, and it was pouring rain. And I remember being able to smell the rain, that feeling. And I could feel the wind kind of blowing the spray into my face, but I was warm. It was a summer day. And I just had this sense of peace and contentment and arrival, I guess is how I would describe it. And that moment has been an incredible anchor for me to pull me into that world. And when you can really immerse yourself in that world, that's when those emotions start to sink in, start to hook get their hooks into you. And that's where I think the power comes from. At least it's worked for me, and people ask me about it, so I'm sharing it. So it all started with playing around with meditation. The other thing I think that's really important that I like about meditation is it allows me to be better at being bored. It allows me to be better at being unstimulated. I mean, how many times if you're standing in line for coffee and you've got a 2-minute wait for the two people in front of you, do you instinctively pull out your phone and you're looking at it? In the elevator, pull out the phone. Waiting for someone, you pull out your phone. We can't seem to get comfortable with not having something bombarding us all the time. And it's a waste, because I really do think that your mind does the most incredible things when it is quote unquote bored, when it's not always being stimulated. I think that's why we have such cool dreams. It's why we solve problems into the evening. It's why we solve problems when we're not thinking about it. We're doing something completely different. It allows us to let our mind be free. But also, this phone, a lot of us are reaching for social media. And the problem with social media, I mean, look, you're watching me on social media, so I enjoy it and I consume it, but it is a window into someone else's life. It is a window into someone else's dream. Or it is a window into someone else's fabricated ideal world. But the point is, it's not yours. And I think it can disconnect you from who you want to be and who you want to become and the life that you want to live. So by being able to get comfortable with meditation, I think that will have a trickle-down effect into being able to be calm and quiet and not always stimulated, which will then free up your mental horsepower to focusing on you and your own things and where you want to go. And that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to create these things for yourself so that you can then use them as motivation to create them in the real world. But if you sit and live on Instagram and digest everyone else's world, I think it's just like treading water. It's not doing anything. And it's probably tiring you out, and it is absolutely not connecting you with who you want to be. So try meditating. It doesn't have to be some crazy monastic type process. Be open-minded to it. If it's something that you think isn't for you, I mean, what does that mean? It can be for everybody who wants it to be. It doesn't have to be about banishing all thoughts. It's just about finding some stillness and some quiet and unleashing your mind to create something really incredible that adds value in your life. So that's it for today for day 13. And those of you who have reached out to me and asked for more about my vision and the process of getting to the end, I really appreciate the questions. It means you guys are listening and you're vested in this, which is awesome. That would be my next step. Invest some time in meditating and be patient with it. It's not going to happen. If you go into it thinking, oh, I'll try it for a weekend. If I can't be still and can't be calm, then it's not for me. I mean, there are literally people who meditate for hours a day, every day for like decades and can't achieve this sort of state that we all think should be easily achievable with a week of 10-minute calm meditation sessions in the morning. Have fun with it. Let me know in the comments if you have meditated in the past, how it's worked for you. If you don't like it or if you have some sort of aversion to it, talk about it. Let's have a conversation. But I really do think if you want to create a vision like I've created for myself, that's your very next step. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I will see you tomorrow.